Well, welcome and good evening, wonderful dice of all alignments. I am Lunar D8, and this should be a very short video. Of course, I'm not going to do the idea for the video that the title is kind of based on, just because that would take a very long time. And, well, there's other things I'd like to do. Can't do everything all at the same time, no matter how hard I actually try. It's kind of weird. I have an addictive personality. I'll try to do lots of different things, but also want to do so, but hey, it just means a lot more fun, and albeit it makes the channel a little more chaotic. A lot of it's just me doing whatever random idea pops in my head. But yeah, the title of the video is an idea like, what if it would have came to like the terrible karaoke stuff? What if I were to look at a song and then just try to actually sing it for a video 69 times in a row? Of course, I just chose that number because I thought it was funny. Anyway, but, and of course, where I'm going with this is I think what most people would kind of take as just like it's a Captain Obvious moment, to where this is kind of something that everybody would do if they would want to be better at something. But at the same time, it's just like when it came to the idea of singing stuff, like the idea is if you had a video where you were to sing the same song 69 times in a row, one, not only would you, of course, get better at it, but here's the thing. From the standpoint of somebody watching the video, you'd be able to look at the very start of the video, and not only would you hear the person getting better at timing or how certain words start getting enunciated better, but you'd also start noticing how, as the person becomes more comfortable with it, as far as more, they sort of already know on a subconscious or ultra instinct Goku level what was going to come next. They'll start having to think less consciously of it, and they'll just start being more not even aware of putting more inflections in how they say the words or how they sing it, or might feel more comfortable in actually just trying to go harder on certain notes. Not going to do that, though, because this would take hours. Could you imagine singing the same song almost 70 times in a row? How long would that take? Most songs are like 3 minutes long at least. But, like I said, the songs I had considered doing that for would be like Linkin Park's Crawling, or Ozzy's Take What You Want, or of course Rammstein's song Amore. Medium hairs. Amore, amore. I don't know. Like I said, I hadn't listened to that song in like forever, and then I think in a video where I was like making a joke about Kylo Ren and going more, more, because I was like, I did a shit ton of German stuff, and it was just like, though half of it I couldn't even like remember how to. At least I led with the one song that I could actually somewhat do okay, and actually to where if you're a native German speaker, you could actually understand what I'm saying. But yeah, it's just the idea of just. But of course, it's a Captain Obvious thing. It's just like, well, if of course you do something more, you're gonna get better at it. But also, it's interesting to take a step back and or to actually have a video showing that process where you can actually see how it changes. But you could also hear not only the person getting better at the singing, or at least knowing what to say, but also if they're thinking about it less consciously, having it become more of an instinctual thing. And then, of course, they'll start just making changes and improving. But I mean, that'd be the same with someone who's a artist, whether it's a manga or anime artist, or a video game artist, or a story writer, or someone who plays guitar, or a martial artist. Not only the more things you learn, but also the more you actually have experience, or actually, doing the thing in question, whether it's going to a thing where you're doing karate with people and learning basic things, or just say take a guitarist who plays more and more guitar over the years, and they learn some scales and they get more comfortable with it, and at first they have to consciously be aware of like, okay, I played this note, so then I should try to hit this note and this note, and then this is the root, and then eventually it just sort of becomes where you don't have to consciously think of like what notes should come next in like a set arpeggio set, and then you just sort of start changing it and adapting it to other things. But I don't know. That's just interesting. Though imagine like if you were to be an artist and you were to draw the same picture 69 times. Yes, your ability to draw that picture would get better, but some artists would probably get like an eidetic copy each time. Others might choose to make creative flares on different ones. Like, oh, let's try a different color palette this time. Or let's try more of this other artist's style that I saw in this one anime. But even if they don't consciously make a decision to make a change, I'd imagine that each one of those pictures would have a small variation, some more noticeable than others. More so just them just going off in a creative direction with the picture and not drawing it the exact same way, just because part of them just felt like it was just an interest, but they weren't even really aware of it. They just sort of, they had the skill and they'd already developed it enough to where they just started using it in a new way, whether they were purposely trying to explore a new art direction or they were just, I don't know, in the groove. Now imagine if you were to play draw the same drawing 69 times. Or say if you're a guitarist. I mean, one could say, what if you played the same riff over and over, but what if you played the same song 69 times? Granted, that would take a long time. But then again, the same thing's true of like people that go to the gym and do the same workout quite a bit, though of course with that sort of thing, you are supposed to increase what you do, but of course you have to be mindful of not hurting yourself, and of course, you know, you have to be careful with that sort of stuff, because but it's just the idea that the more you keep up with something, especially if you do something for long enough, looking back, whether it's bench press, playing guitar, drawing, martial arts. Heck, I imagine people in the UFC might look back over the years as far as like how they've changed on certain things. So that's just interesting. And also there's the ideas as like you were to draw the same picture 69 times or draw different scenarios but of course, I mean, that'd be horrible if you were an actual manga studio. You're expected to draw things a certain way each time. Especially if you're an anime, because otherwise it won't look right in the animation. Though I do realize there's a lot more CGI going on. It's still a time-consuming process that they have to go through. All the CGI stuff really allows is something to be able to make faster than it normally would have. Which, like I said, there's nothing really wrong with it, but sometimes it can feel a little disappointing. But I don't know. It's like the Dragon Ball Super movie that's coming up. It's like I don't know like what kind of quality to expect. But at the same time, like it's just I like the old 90s style of Dragon Ball Z with like the Cell Saga and Frieza Saga, the original ones. Like I have the 10 VHS set of the Frieza Saga uncut. So yeah, it's just I like the old drawing styles, the older, even the stuff from the early 70s. It's still, granted, it's a lot of the genre stuff with that's very different, and the stories are, but they're still interesting and they're enjoyable to watch. So, but the idea is this: if you were to play the same guitar song 69 times in a row, granted, it would probably depend on the emotional tone of the song and what it's about and what significance it holds for you. But I'd imagine like what emotional effect would it have on you, and also would you start experimenting with different improv things like riffs that you think would go along well with the song. So say if you were playing a song from a band that you really like, and you played it over and over, and you feel comfortable with the song, where your fingers know what fret you're going to before you even do. Like you don't even have to think about it. At what point do you start just like adding in rest of your what you know? Like, okay, here's a blues riff, or just start adding little extra accent notes, or trying to change things, or try to play the game, play this, play the song again, but like, okay, let's just change the effect again and try it again. Like, I mean, beyond that, what else? I'd like to ask you guys a question. Aside from there being anything in your lives that you think might actually fall into this category or this subject that I've already mentioned, in particular, I'm thinking about anime, games, music, anything. But I would like to ask this: video games. Are there any video games out there that you guys have played multiple times over and over and over again? Like, is there a video game that you think you've played at least double digit times through? And if you have, why? I mean, obviously it was fun, but what was it that drew you to that game? What was it that made you want to keep playing it over and over and over again? And how did your feelings toward that game change over time? Did you notice new things? Did you have more fun? Now I'll say this. Take Brave Fencer Musashi. I have not played that game in forever. I hope it eventually comes to Steam. And of course they made a spiritual reboot called Samurai Legend Musashi, which is it's an okay game in its own right, but it's not nearly as good as Brave Fencer Musashi. Brave Fencer Musashi, as you can see right here, is an interesting story, and I understand they did as much as they could with the PlayStation 1, but the story did feel a little short. But honestly, for a PlayStation 1 game, honestly, I think the PlayStations would have all caught fire if they tried to put more in there. But it was an incredible story. Everything was a food pun, by the way. You're saving the all-you-can-eat kingdom from the Thirst Quencher Empire, and everything's a food pun. And it's got orchestral music. It's got beautiful voice acting. It's actually got voice actors from like the Dot Hack Sign series, from the Dot Hack games and everything. So it's got professional voice actors, and it's just like the voice acting is so awesome, and it's a great story. It's of course got its ups and downs, but it's like it has action, suspense, it's comedy, it's great, it's all around, it's cool. And the fact of the matter is that at the end, I played it multiple times. Granted, I haven't played it in years and years and years now, but the very first time I ever played it took me 24 hours to beat it, just because there were lots of places where I kept getting lost or confused on certain things. The first major hurdle I ran into was trying to get across the river at the Twin Peak Mountains. And yes, that does sound sexual. Twin Peak Mountains. Then again, Twin Peaks Mountains is right next to Hell's Valley. Apparently the landscape's just a giant naked woman, I guess. I don't know how I don't know. But though in the very middle of that, between those two structures, there is a giant tree. That's a power plant in Steamwood Forest. Now it's making me think about the anime Bible Black. Okay. Well, I mean, I already making silly random cringe statements is nothing new here. Anyway, back to the game. At first I didn't know what to do, then you just have to jump on a fucking pole that's in the middle of the water that's supposed to be a tree. But they can't animate the part of the tree because of the water. Again, I understand. But there was also lots of things I did, like when I couldn't figure out how to get into the church area for the quest with the Vambies. There are so many times I try to jump onto buildings to try to jump over that fence that way, or try to manipulate how I could like sprint certain places. And I didn't know about the belt later, and I was just like trying random things. But say the first playthrough took like 24 hours. Eventually, though, it got to the point it would take like 4 hours to play the whole game. Like there's a scene in like there's lots of places where you try to explore, you try to look at new things, you try to take your time, read things. There's learning to get the Metal Man skill in the Frozen Palace, or there's when you when you first get to the underground dungeons in the Relic Keeper Labyrinth. That stuff's a bit confusing and a bit hard, especially the platforming segments. But it went from being something that was long and tedious and difficult to something that I started, sort of speed running, like going through those dungeons and seeing how fast I could do it. And of course, it's interesting that there's a Dance Dance Revolution segment toward the end, which is just hilarious and enjoyable. And of course, the minecart segment is actually a lot like the game Thumper. So that's pretty cool. I'm just saying, I really did enjoy it. Like I said, it had great voice acting, it had beautiful brushstroke artwork style, and it has orchestral music. It's amazing. Now, there is another game called Samurai Legend Musashi, which I consider to be Brave Fencer Musashi 2, which is sort of a retelling of the first game, but it's a new story of its own right. It's got new fighting game mechanics. It now has a thick, cel-shaded manga-style artwork with surf guitar and the most horrible voice acting you've ever heard. But it's not a bad... Also, you're saving a bunch of mystics that ride a space whale from an evil, Sith corporation? I don't know. And of course, it changes some of the scrolls. It changes, because before, it's like a Zelda game. You had your 5 scrolls of the different elements, and then they change a bit what they do in the second one. And like I said, it's different game mechanics, different story, but you can definitely tell it has a lot of. It even parodies some stuff in Final Fantasy VII. It's not a game I would suggest to somebody offhand, but it is a game I would suggest to somebody that if they played Brave Fencer Musashi. Like, if somebody told me they'd only played Brave Fencer Musashi once, I would tell them, go back, play it 2 more times, then try Samurai Legend. Same way if they're like, hey, do you consider one or the other? I'd say, just get Brave Fencer Musashi. Don't bother with Samurai Legend. Because Brave Fencer Musashi is a much, much, much better game than Samurai Legend. But, for somebody who's played Brave Fencer Musashi multiple times, it's very interesting to hop into Samurai Legend. And it kind of feels a bit nostalgic as well as you almost feel like an old timer because you're like, they don't make things like they used to. I remember the good old days in my Musashi games and shit like that. Though I do have to say, I would like to have a Musashi 3. We have PlayStation 5s now. Granted, I've still yet to actually see a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox XZ whatever in real life. I've only seen them in commercials and shit. So, heck, I have yet to ever. I don't think our Walmart in the recent round where I am has ever even had a PS5 in the building ever. So, I don't know. Not that I'm really in a rush to do that. That's my PS4 is good enough. The only thing it's really a struggle for is I bought Cyberpunk 2077 when it came out for the PS4. I have a base PS4. I still can't play it without it crashing. I still run into glitches and I can't do anything. I'm like, shut down of a mod. So, but yeah, it's just, I don't know. I would like to see a new Brave Fencer Musashi game. Now, granted, with as small as the file sizes would be, I would like to not only have a Brave Fencer Musashi 3 game, but I would like to have Brave Fencer Musashi and Samurai Legend as extras added on, where these hey, here's the 2 older games. you can play them. But there's no reason why we can't have a PS5, like have a Brave Fencer Musashi 3, but have like PS5 level graphics. Same way Mega Man Legends. I enjoyed Mega Man Legends, or also as called Mega Man 64, because at one point it was originally a N64 game, but was ported to a PlayStation 1 under the title Mega Man Legends. It's a really great three-dimensional Mega Man game, and I think it's awesome. Though at times I felt it was way too hard, and of course, at times it felt like there could use more, but again, PlayStation would have probably caught fire if they put more in there. It's just. And of course, there's Mega Man Legends 2, which again, all the same could be said. Really enjoyed it, but we all wanted to see a Mega Man Legends 3. And then it never happened. It's 20 years later, I still want it. Imagine if we had a Mega Man Legends game that finishes out that story, but PS5 level graphics. So, yeah. But yeah, like I said, it can be about anything, whether it's martial arts, guitar, drawing, music. But is there anything that you've actually done many times and either gotten better at it or done many times and just were able to get more into it? And of course, any shows you've watched multiple times, any bands you've seen multiple times at concerts. But like I said, the big thing is this. Are there any video games that you played over and over and over again? But yeah, I really do like the game Brave Fencer Musashi. I think it's the best game that was ever made for the original PlayStation. Now, beyond that, I still think it might be a good idea to make a video sometime called Lunar Spice, where I just find random hot sauces that might be obscure that people never heard of before. Granted, I'd just be doing an audio only reaction and description of it. But yeah. Anyway, bye guys.